All right, biology. We have moved from water, talking about why water was important to living things and the properties of water. Now we're going to talk about the different types of molecules that all living things have. And basically, two we're going to focus in on today are lipids and carbohydrates. So these will relate a lot to your food or things that you eat. So when you eat like a plant, they give you certain types of these molecules that will help you survive. So, carbon, we talked about elements. Carbon is pretty unique because all life on Earth is carbon based. It's considered an organic compound if it contains carbon atoms bonded with hydrogen atoms. When atoms form an electron, they covalently bond. And carbon is unique because it's a single atom that can bond up with four other elements covalently. So this right here, remember when we were drawing our electrons, carbon has 6 protons. I'm going to move this down. 6 electrons and 6 neutrons. So the positives are red, there's 6 protons. The neutrons are green, they're yellow, they do not have a charge. And then the electrons float around in the orbitals. The first orbital holds 2, the second orbital holds 4, 2 plus 4, 6. So they can bond with 4 other different molecules. Macromolecule just simply means large molecule. And there's 4 macromolecules that basically all living things have. Carbon's unique structures allows the formation of macromolecules, or these big molecules. Macromolecules are large and long complex molecules made by chains of smaller molecules. A monomer is the building block of molecules that combines in a chemical reaction to form polymers. So I know that there's a lot of big words in there. Mono means one, molecule, one part, mono, one part, monomer. And then polymers are when you put all those together. They're kind of like the building blocks. The 4 macromolecules we're going to talk about are proteins, which are like in meats, a lot of meats, sugars in fruits and plants, fats, they're in everything, and nucleic acids as well. So nucleic acids like DNA and RNA. So proteins, carbohydrates, lipids, nucleic acids. Lipids are basically fats and oils. So here's a picture of lard, oil, cream cheese, butter. Those all are high in lipids or high in fats. They also include waxes, like in your ear, or oils, or steroids, which is when cholesterol, which cholesterol is kind of like in your cell membrane, and it helps identify, it helps keep some rigidity or some structure to the cell membrane. Fats and oils are basically the same structure. They're made up of 2 monomers. They have a fatty acid tail and a glycerol head. A fatty acid is a long chain of carbohydrate atoms connected to each other by a single or double bond. So if you have a large chain of carbon with a lot of hydrogens off of it, that's considered a lipid. And we're breaking these down into the molecular level. This is what fatty acids look like. So here's your long chain of carbons, and there's a bunch of hydrogens attached to it. And then here's another type of lipid. It has a long chain of carbon. It doesn't have as many hydrogens. So what do you think the difference is between saturated and unsaturated? And these blue lines, they represent the bonds. So when you have bonds, these are single bonds, these are double bonds. So saturated is a long chain of single bond carbons. It means it's saturated with hydrogen. And that's kind of like a bad fat, like they're usually solid at room temperature, like lard, butter. Unsaturated is usually an oil at room temperature, and they have double bonds. If you see these 2 lines here, that means that they're double bonded. They don't have as many hydrogens, and and they break down a little bit easier. So the function of lipids is basically it's an long-term energy storage. So when you adipose tissue is fat tissue, you store energy in fat. Um, Cell membranes also are made up of lipids. They're called phospholipids, and they help form the plasma membrane or cell membrane. They have cholesterol in there. They have these phospholipids that like form two layers. Fat is used for insulation and protection. Fat insulates and provides a cushion of protection. So like bears, when they go to hibernate for the winter, they have a long-term energy storage, but also they are kept warm by the insulation. All of your organs are surrounded by a thin layer of fat. So it kind of makes them like a cushion in case you get into an accident. And lipids are also chemical messengers, like hormones, steroids. They act as chemical messengers. They kind of tell the body what to do. So here's the phospholipid, what it looks like. It's a main component of the cell membrane. Here's one broken down. You have a head and fatty lipid tails. If you look, here's two layers. Miss Flaherty just tripped, sorry. And the heads always point outwards towards water, the tails always point inwards. This is like if you take a section of this and straighten it out. Here's another, like this would be the hydrophobic or hydrophilic heads. That means it likes water. Hydrophobic means it doesn't like water. It pushes away from water. It's fearful. Phobia means you're fearful. We'll talk more about that. Here's another picture of a phospholipid. So if you take like the cell, the outer ridge of the cell membrane is made up of those. And then the other macromolecule we're going to talk about is a carbohydrate. Carbohydrates consist of a carbon, a hydrogen, and an oxygen that's also used for energy, but it's more of a short-term energy. It consists of a 1 to 2 to 1 ratio, 1 carbon to 2 hydrogen to 1 oxygen. The simplest type of carbohydrate is called a monosaccharide. Mono means one, saccharide in Latin means sugar. Like if you ever hear that song, Pour Some Sugar on Me, pour some sugar on me. And it says, you got the peaches, I got the cream, sweets today. Saccharine means it's sweet, it's sugar. So monosaccharide, one sugar. Examples of monosaccharides are glucose, fructose, and galactose. And then when they form, like the monomers of sugar, when they form and get into big longer chains, that forms a polysaccharide, which is a complex carbohydrate. Starches, they're in potatoes. A lot of potatoes have long strings of carbohydrate. Glycogen, that is a polysaccharide that's in our liver cells. They're for storage as well. And cellulose, those are in plant cells. They give the plant structure, and they also are long-term storage. So the carbohydrate function, what it does, cellular respiration is a whole unit on here, but basically when we eat carbohydrates and they're digested to glucose, we use that to get energy. So cellular respiration really doesn't have anything to do with breathing. It has to do with energy. And so when we eat carbohydrates from plants or animals, we break those down and we get energy. Energy storage. The polysaccharides, they store energy in animals and plants. Glycogen is specifically animals. Starch is specifically plants. And also carbohydrates are used in function, like there's cellulose that's in cell walls. Here's your cell walls. You have these plant fibers. That's called cellulose. And they basically form these long strings. Chitin is another carbohydrate. We talked about it before. Chitin is the in cell walls of fungus or in insect shells. Those are all made of carbohydrates. So difference between carbohydrates, this is what it looks like structurally. You have a 1 to 2 to 1 ratio of one carbon. The black ones are carbon, so you have 6 of these. The white ones are hydrogen, you have 12. And the red ones are oxygen, you have 6. So a 1 to 2 to 1 ratio. Lipids, you have your hydrophilic heads, hydrophobic tails. And the last thing we're going to talk about, we're just covering this briefly, is there's 2 types of reactions that make or break macromolecules, large molecules. One's called dehydration synthesis. Before I even go into the definition, to dehydrate means to take water out, and synthesis means to make in Latin. So you're taking water out to make something. You join monomers together to form a large polymer. Water is produced as a byproduct. So another word for this is condensation reaction. So really think about what the words mean. Dehydrate, take water out, synthesis, to make. So right here, you have 2 simple molecules. You're gonna take out water, taking it out, and making something more complex. So you keep doing that. So basically taking out water to make something bigger. Hydrolysis is the complete opposite reaction. This is going to break. Hydro means water, lysis means to break. Breaking by water. So basically you break down polymers into monomers. You break down a larger molecule, a long molecule, many molecules, into a single molecule. So here you put water in, it breaks that bond there and makes 2 separate molecules. So dehydration, synthesis, and hydrolysis. All right. That's it for today. We're going to practice a couple days on both carbohydrates and lipids. We're going to learn about the structure, remember, they both deal with energy storage, just lipids are long-term, carbohydrates are short-term energy.